You're listening to the Major Pod Network, the only place where your favorite toy store, bar, arcade, and arena are all on the same block. Scratch that major itch.
Today on the Game Marks podcast, we play Wrestling Universe Fire Pro Joshi, Dome Choujo Taisen, WOWOW versus JPW, courtesy of Mega Mark Bret Vaa. Thanks, Brett. Will this Fire Pro title from 1995 hold up today? Will we play it forever? Woo! Or future endeavor?
You're fired!
All of this plus gaming news, GMP64 and Clash at the feast. Plug in and put on those nostalgia goggles because this week's Game Marks podcast starts now. And now, the Game Marks.
Welcome to the Game Marks podcast presented by the Major Pod Network. My name is George Feis.
And I'm the man they... Oh no, that's right. I have a nickname this week because I did the Wednesday stream and they gave me a nickname. Oh. I am the Jumpin' Jeff Farmer of video games, Johnny Clash. And today we are playing Wrestling Universe Fire Pro Joshi, Dome Choujo Taisen, WOWOW versus JWP. I am going to shorten that to Fire Pro Joshi for the rest of the episode. How you doing, George?
My head is spinning from the amount of, I don't know, is it supposed to be like Wrestling Universe, Fire Pro Joshi, and then the subtitle is the rest of it, or is it just one long title? I can't wait till we talk about the box art for this. I imagine that there's no pictures, it's just words. It's just a full jewel case of words.
It's not, but we'll get there.
Oh man. But hey, as always, guys, we'd love to hear from you, so please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and make sure to subscribe and rate this podcast wherever you choose to listen. And always join in on the conversation on all forms of social media at GameMarksPod, and join us on our Patreon, patreon.com/GameMarksPod. Johnny Clash.
What's up?
This is it, episode 101.
We're over the hump.
We're now officially one episode into triple digits. This is great.
Yeah, and last week for our 100th episode, we played WCW versus NWO World Tour with friend of the pod, WCW Worldwide. Brian joined us, and that was a great episode. Great guest. He has such insight on everything WCW, and I cannot wait to have him again.
And like we said last week, that's not gonna be the last we see of Brian on the podcast. Can't wait to have him back. Maybe we'll just do a running series. Maybe he'll be part of the next AKI WCW game that we play.
Yeah, he'll always be good to have on the podcast. He always brings something to the table. I actually subscribed to his Patreon yesterday, so we are now official WCW Worldwide Patreon members. But speaking of Patreon, this week on our Patreon, right now, you get the ad-free show. That's Monday. Tuesday, you get these show notes and GMP Game Over at 7 p.m. That's the sister show of GMP64. Wednesday, Future Endeavored, where we go back and we play the games that we Future Endeavored. Last week, I played Fire Pro Wrestling Returns. And this week, you got to play Nacho Libre.
Nacho!
Oh, your face when you do that, it creeps me out. And then, of course, Friday, Clash and Burn.
I'm really enjoying Future Endeavored. I think it's a fun experiment, I guess is the right word, because usually, we talk about playing with nostalgia goggles and looking at games with nostalgia goggles, but now it's not only going back and, in some cases, playing games that we played when we were younger, but also now going back and okay, let's try to remember that stuff that we played and why we liked it or disliked the game from a year ago. So it's a different kind of nostalgia goggles. It makes it a little bit more of an interesting experience having already dabbled in that game.
Yeah, and next week, kind of in the same realm, I'll be playing Power Move Pro Wrestling. I remember that one very vividly. I don't remember why I disliked it though, but I guess we're about to revisit that and see why.
But John, let's talk about the streamer spotlight, because for the month of July, it is Livin' La Vida Yoko. Our good friend Yoko from Super 7. And at this point, she's more than just Yoko from Super 7. She's just our friend Yoko. Infinite patience with all of her bedazzling and beating things and tons of giveaways and breaking down all things. Just if you are a Star Wars nerd, if you're if you like any kind of action figure, like she covers it all. There's something for everybody on Yoko's stream, so make sure to go and show her some love. Twitch.tv/livinlavida.yoko.
Oh, baby. And I'm going to announce right now.
I'm ready for this.
Next Wednesday, we are going to drop a little bonus episode, which is our interview with Mark Out Digital Wrestling Card Games, Shannon Williams. Oh, I cannot wait to we're doing this in video format because he actually has some visuals and stuff that he shows, and I want everybody to see that. It gets you even more hyped for this game to come out, and yeah, we're going to drop it in both audio and video next Wednesday. I guess if you're listening to this on Monday, in 2 days from now.
This was a very eye-opening interview. As someone who's never been really big into the wrestling card games, this seems like it's going to be a very different experience, and I cannot wait to get my hands on this game. But John, do you wanna go back and forth and talk a little bit about GMP64, because episode 24 of GMP64 came out, and listen, man, we are building to the Royal Rumble July 25th live on our Twitch channel.
I cannot wait for the Royal Rumble. It has been my favorite pay-per-view until the end of time, and I enjoy playing those matches. And we're going to see who's going to go to WrestleMania and who's going to go and challenge the World Heavyweight Champion. But we still have to know who the World Heavyweight Champion is going to be, because Stone Cold Steve Austin has returned to take on Shawn Michaels, the current champion. That's 2 Clash brand guys.
Now, wait a second. I have a question here. Just not GMP64, they're just wrestling in general, because you just said Royal Rumble is one of your favorite pay-per-views. It's one of mine as well. Is there anyone who doesn't like the Royal Rumble? I feel like that's like a very rare breed of person who's like, oh, the Royal Rumble's stupid, I hate it.
I don't know. Yeah, I think that would be pretty rare. There was like a moment in time a few years back where, like, I don't know, the way they would work the Rumbles, they just weren't fun. Like there was
yeah.
I think it was the one that Mick Foley and Santino were in or something, and I just remember thinking, like, why is there only 2 or 3 guys in the ring this whole match? Like, there was never like that part where there's just like 6, 7, 8 guys just trying to eliminate each other, but
it's just total chaos. Like, I feel like that's like you said, like that's part of the charm, is that like, oh my god, like there's so many people in the ring right now.
Yeah, there was just some that it just wasn't there, but I feel like they got back on track, and I don't watch much WWE anymore, but I will always watch the Royal Rumble.
Oh, absolutely.
But that is on our YouTube channel. You can find that at youtube.com/GameMarksPodcast or by just searching Game Marks Podcast. We are currently at 314 subscribers, and once we hit 400, we are going to drop the history of the Road Warriors, the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal in video game form. We did this with The Undertaker. We did this with Bret Hart. The Bret Hart one was also a video. I think we're going to do video again for the Road Warriors. I cannot wait. These are some of my favorite episodes that we do here on the podcast.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait. And, you know, last 2 episodes, we may have released some limited edition shirts to coincide with that release, and maybe we'll do it again.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. But George, up next, we have some gaming news.
Are you looking to get a better grip on life? How about your video games? Well, VGF Gamers are the largest silicone gaming brand in the USA. They have a variety of different and unique skins for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One controllers and consoles. Check out their products at vgfgamers.com and use code GameMarks to receive 15% off your order at checkout. That's GAMEMARKS at checkout. VGF Gamers. Better grip, better style.
According to multiple sources, Netflix has hired Mike Verdu as Vice President of Game Development. Verdu has previously worked at Electronic Arts and with Facebook as the Vice President working with developers for the Oculus team. At this time, additional details are limited, but Netflix has previously indicated its desire to expand into the world of video game streaming. The company has dabbled in interactive offerings like Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Kimmy vs. the Reverend, but Verdue's hiring shows that the company has a much bigger video game plans for the future. Speculation of yet another Spider-Man sequel from Insomniac Games was ignited this week. Miles Morales' voice actor Najee Jeter posted a video on his Instagram in a full mocap suit. Jeter is also known for playing Sam in The Last of Us, though we could only assume this is for another Spider-Man related project, whether a sequel to Spider-Man or DLC, but we do not know for sure at this moment. 343 Industries has confirmed a fan favorite gameplay feature will be present when the Xbox One, Xbox Series XS, and the PC releases this holiday season. If it releases this holiday season. The feature comes courtesy of Apex Legends, which popularized the feature, or at least it popularized its current implementation. More specifically, 343 Industries has announced that Halo Infinite has a pinging system, or as it refers to as a mark system. I guess we have one of those too. His name is George. That's all the gaming news we have this week. Check back next week. Alright, so Netflix is getting into gaming. We read this a few weeks ago, where what? What's that face?
It doesn't even say that in the notes.
I had to put my own little spin on it.
Wow.
But regardless, we saw a few weeks ago that Netflix was saying they were getting into gaming, and it was kind of speculated that it wasn't necessarily like a gaming division where they're going to start streaming games, but maybe they would get into some type of distribution, or I don't know. But it turns out that they're actually getting into developing some games.
Yeah, I mean, that's... I feel like at this stage in the world, in media, that gaming is such like an untapped market for certain avenues, I guess. Like, if you think about it, everyone... like, Amazon has a gaming division.
Yeah.
Like,
Google.
It only makes sense. Google had the Stadia, and everybody knows how groundbreaking that was, right? everyone's got their Stadia out there that's listening. So this just seems like it's the next logical step for Netflix to expand their horizons. And I'm kind of excited to see what happens with this. But speaking of, did you happen to see the Steam Deck announcement?
No, I did not. What is that?
All right. So you're familiar with Steam.
Yes, I have Steam.
So Steam is releasing Steam is releasing their first console that's not just like a PC portable kind of thing. The Steam Deck is essentially your entire Steam library on a Nintendo Switch. Interesting.
Okay.
It's a large piece of equipment. It's kind of like the Switch Lite, where it's, it doesn't dock in terms of like putting it on a TV screen. It's just that fixed controller style. It's got a lot of buttons. It's got 2 analog sticks, a D-pad. It looks like it's got like 2 track pads. It has your normal like 4 button. It has your L and R shoulders and triggers, but then there's 3 and 4 where, like, if you were holding, like, imagine that you're holding like a Switch, where your ring finger and your pinky finger are, there's now 2 buttons there, R3 and R4. So you've got multiple shoulder buttons. So it looks like you have your entire Steam library at your disposal. And apparently at some point there will be a dock that actually will give you the ability to hook it up to your actual computer or your actual TV, and then you can play it like it's a computer. This is just, it's such a weird or interesting looking console to me, for the sense of the fact that there's 4, like an, R1 through 4 and L1 through 4, but the display itself in certain images looks like it's a square, not a rectangle, which is a strange way to have your games be displayed, because most games are meant to be played in like 1920 by 1080 resolution.
Interesting. To me, it looks like the whole screen is a rectangle, but like that screen within the screen changes sizes, I guess, depending what game you play. Because like I play Roller Coaster Tycoon, and that's a square game, and you can't really change that about it. So I would assume it's for like games like that. But this thing looks pretty awesome.
Yeah, it looks nuts. In my head, I feel like this is gonna do well, but at the same time, I've seen, and we've talked about how these new consoles try to compete with other consoles, and companies try to compete with other companies, and sometimes it just doesn't work out as planned. But I mean, this looks great, and knowing how well the Switch has done, and having the ability to have your entire Steam library at your disposal, this could be a major competitor.
Yeah, I'd say. When you first said console, I was picturing like a big actual console, but no, this makes a ton of sense for. Especially, it won't have the capability to put like a disc in, and that's kind of dying anyway. But that's Steam's thing to begin with. But it would be cool to have kind of like the broadcast to screen icon, like a Chromecast or smart TV type thing. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and who knows? That may even be something that's in that that hamburger menu button that's on the top right side. But this definitely is going to change things up. If handheld gaming, if this is what it's going to be, I mean, Sony, Xbox, all these companies are going to have to really step it up, because Switch for the Nintendo and the Switch for the last, 2 years? 3 years has really changed what like handheld gaming looks like and what a portable console looks like with the Switch. So now if Steam's hopping in before Microsoft or Sony are, I think Sony and Microsoft might have to step up their game and get on this sooner rather than later.
I'd say so.
But John, what do you say we hop on over to the question of the week?
Let's go, baby.
Hey yo, Game Marks. You know who I am, and I'm here to tell you about our pro wrestling tees and TeePublic stores. Now let me tell you something, Game Marks. Not only do we have the most radical shirts over at Pro Wrestling Tees, we also have a TeePublic store with even more designs, dude. So head on over to ProWrestlingTees.com/GameMarksPod and TeePublic.com/user/GameMarksPod, because when you're GMP for life.
All right, guys, so the question of the week is a weekly segment where you ask us a question on any form of social media, and if we pick your question, you get a GMP prize pack. Now, last week, the question was, what would you have done differently regarding the rollout of WWE 2K20 if you were given control? John and I gave our answers, but some answers from everyone on social media. Let's see, we got at Will is Ballin'. Hey, Will, what's going on?
Will's back. We brought Will back.
A delay to fix some of the more critical bugs may have done a lot of good. Being more open, like, I don't know, actually showing gameplay before the game was released, may not have helped with the bottom line, but I think it would have helped with tempering expectations and mitigating backlash. Gambino62 says he wishes they would have realized that it wasn't a complete game and that the fans deserved better. Following that, by not releasing it until it could pass rigorous testing protocols and then including any planned DLC free of charge as a sign of good faith, which is
wouldn't that be
more
nice?
Or less what I said. Not all DLC, but, just an extra pack, like a bonus DLC pack.
Just give us the Fiend.
And that's it. The bump and then, that was like the main selling point anyway. Just give us that.
Yeah.
And the Fees 23 says cancel it. People would have been disappointed, but now they become a bit of a laughingstock and sown a ton of bad will into their remaining fans. Now, this is probably the hottest take of all the responses that we got on this question, because yes, canceling the game absolutely would have disappointed so many people, because for as many people that talked shit on the game and hated the game, there's also a lot of people, self included, who got it and played it.
I played it for a while.
I don't know. It's one of those double-edged swords. Would you rather have the game and go an entire year without the official release and then know that the only game you got that year was Battlegrounds?
Ooh. Yeah, how quickly I stopped playing Battlegrounds 2.
Yeah, it died out quick. It's very like rinse and repeat.
Yeah. But this week's question comes from F.A. Blake Moore. Now, he's been a winner in the past, but I could not let this question slide because I actually thought it was a really good one, and it went with last week's discussion. In the theme of last week's debate on the WCW World Tour cover, if you could redesign any wrestling game cover, what would it be? He would have put all three members of the NWO on the cover, Hogan, Nash, and Hall. All right, well, mine, it's not so much who's on the cover, but I always had a problem with WWF Attitude with how big the Acclaim Sports logo is. It takes up almost the whole, if you're on N64, it's almost half of the thing, and WWF Attitude in the middle. But I will say this. Thinking back to that red-toned jewel case, like a rush of nostalgia. Like, I remember it. I will always remember what this cover looks like. I just don't like it.
I have like a weird answer. I don't really even know if you're gonna agree with me on this one, but it's just, how do I explain this? So you know how for most sports games, like the 2K series, and now even with the 2K series for wrestling, there's always like the cover star, like we saw The Rock on 2K14, John Cena on 15, and then for like NFL and NBA, you have their cover stars as well. How come it's always just one shot? How come it's always just like one promo? How come it's not like how, if you go back and you look at the covers that we've played in other games where it's like other shots of people silhouetted into the background or like overlaid on the background texture, like have that one prominent image of The Rock or John Cena, but then like faded in the background with like the opacity turned down or like the texture overlaid on it, have like shots of them hitting their moves and stuff like that. Like I feel like at some point that left cover art, like if you look at the SmackDown 2 cover, it's very much The Rock and Triple H on the cover, but like faded into the background. You see Jericho doing the Walls of Jericho. Yeah. You've got The Undertaker about to hit a choke slam on someone. Like pick your cover artist, but make the cover of the game itself more than just like that one shot of them doing a pose. Like, incorporate more.
I don't mind it because I feel like it's the whole marketing scheme of, oh, LeBron James is on the cover of this game. You're only getting it's just him.
Yeah, but like do LeBron and have like LeBron striking like he's like, he's got his arms crossed, but then like in the back have shots of him like dunking or whatever. Like make it something that's a little more appealing. Just like,
well, you know what? Graphics evolved, and that's just what they evolved into, and that's what everyone runs with now. Even the WWE games, all the 2K games, everything, every sports game pretty much, they want their one cover artist, and that's it. But how cool, we mentioned this a while, I don't remember what the discussion was, but this was a while ago. If SmackDown continued making SmackDown games, not SmackDown versus Raw, you have to assume the next one, like John Cena, would be on the cover.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I don't know what the game, SmackDown,
maybe Word Life or Chain
You
Gang.
Can't See Me. SmackDown, You Can't See Me. That would have been cool.
Yeah. John, should we design covers for SmackDown? You Can't See Me?
I think we should. I think I want to see everyone else's take on it also.
Yeah, all right. So that'll be our question to you guys this week. Let us know what the next game. Are we saying that John Cena's on the cover?
John Cena's on the cover. It's called You Can't See Me.
Or if you got a better idea for the next SmackDown game with John Cena on the cover, what's the name of the game?
Let us know.
All right, John. Is it time?
Oh, I'm tiptoeing. You know what? There's one part of this game that's going to excite me very much, and you'll know when we get there. I'm inching.
Oh, boy.
I'm tiptoeing. I'm ready to make a splash.
For the last time in this episode, we are going to take the deep dive on Wrestling Universe Fire Pro Joshi Dome Choujo Taisen WOWOW versus JWP. John, cannonball in.
Banzai!
Are you sick of drinking the same old boring coffee with the same old boring flavors? Well, Marks, it's time for you to check out Bones Coffee Company. Bones Coffee isn't just a drink that wakes you up in the morning. It's a full flavor experience. Small batch roasts that are made to order so that every order is guaranteed to be fresh. Unbelievable, all-natural flavors in every single bag. Some of our favorites are blueberry, paradise pie, and chocolate raspberry. But if you're not into the flavored coffees, they've got their single origin series featuring coffee beans from the greatest coffee growing regions in the world. Visit GameMarksPod.com/coffee to place your order and try the world's freshest small batch coffee. All right. Fire Pro Joshi released February 13th, 1995 for the TurboGrafx 16, developed by Human Entertainment and published by Human Entertainment. And this is another continuation in the long-running storied history of the Fire Pro Wrestling series. So this is a continuation in the storied history of the Fire Pro Wrestling series. Now, this game itself is an updated re-release of Fire Pro Joshi All-Star Dream Slam, which was released to the Super Famicom in 1994. Now, we have covered All-Star Dream Slam in the archive, so make sure to go check that out. But that game replaces the Battle Royal with the Wrestler Edit mode. Now, this game is unique in the sense that in order to play this on your computer, you required an arcade card as well as a 6-button controller. Now, 6-button controller to me means you actually need like the arcade controller with like the analog stick and the 6 buttons because it's meant to be played in an arcade game. But I have seen posts that you can map it to any 6-button controllers, much like how if you had a MAME emulator, you can emulate that. For us, we actually ended up playing Queen Special for Clash at the Feast this week. We'll get a little bit more into that later. But let's talk about how this game looks, because the presentation of this game is blue and gold. That's it. The whole game, blue and gold.
Very, it's like we're at the Oscars. It's just like gold statues of Joshi wrestlers, of women wrestlers, but then you get into like the actual game options and everything's also kind of cartoony because we are still in like the Super Nintendo era, so everything's gonna look like that.
So that's the thing that like confused me and was weird to me, was like you've got, obviously you know that it's a Fire Pro game and you're expecting, you know, that sets a certain expectation of how the game's going to look. And you're like, okay, the blue and the gold and the presentation is fine. And like the start screen is like that typical, like you've got like the cover art on a black background. There's nothing really fancy or special about it. But then you look at the little icons under each thing. And when we first looked at this, I thought that this is what the game was going to look like. I was like, who are these little like anime chibi characters that look like I'm about to play like like Joe and Mac or something?
They're like little Ash Ketchum looking guys.
Yeah, but then, you know, once you're actually in a match, and obviously we'll get into that a little later when we break down the actual gameplay and the graphics, but man, a lot of conflicting styles here on this just right out of the gate. But in terms of your game modes, you've got your exhibition, your tag team, your battle royal, your tournament, your edit wrestler, and options.
Now, I'm going to have to stop you here because those are probably not accurate, because it actually doesn't say what they are. In English, it has Japanese translation, and I assumed. We know that exhibition sometimes in these is one night match or something like that. One night match. So
they have like champion, whatever.
Yeah, so I'm judging by the small picture that we looked at where it shows like a one-on-one. I would assume that's exhibition. And then there's kind of like a step stool, which I thought was settings. There's tag team. I don't know. This is all assumptions. This game is probably the hardest game I've ever had to research in my life. There's almost nothing out there.
Trying to find a copy for this to play was equally as hard. This game just does not really exist in terms of like ease of replayability. But listen, we figured out a way. John busted his ass in getting the research done for this. So, you know, big shout out and big thanks to Brett for for this week's game. But John, is it time? Do you want me to read through the roster, but then I will leave you with the last one?
How about you read All Japan and I'll read JWP?
Okay.
But
I like that.
before we do that, let's hear a word from our sponsors. All right.
So your All Japan Pro Wrestling roster is as follows: Bull Nakano, Asia Kong, Akira Hokuto, Kyoko Inoue, Yumiko Hoda, Takakao Inoue, Toshio Yamada, Toyoto Minami, Suzuka Minami, Bat Yoshinaga, Saki Hasagawa, Mariko Yoshida, Kaoru Ito, Etsuko Mima Shinoda, and Chaparita Asari.
All right, and now your JWP roster: Devil Masami, Dynamite Kanzai, Mayumi Ozaki, Plum Mariko, Hakiri Fukuoka, Candy Okutsu, Bolshoi Kid, and guys,
Drumroll.
She's back.
Drumroll.
She's back. Cutie Suzuki.
The long-awaited return of John's favorite Yoshi wrestler.
All right, and the following wrestlers you could actually create in the wrestler edit mode. It is said you could only do up to 6 wrestlers, so keep in mind that when you're trying to create these, because I know you guys are all rushing to go play this game now that we said Cutie Suzuki is in it, but that's Shinobu Kandori, Eagle Sawai, Harley Saito, Norio Tatento, Megumi Kudo, Combat Toyoto, Infernal Kaoro, Blizzard Yuki, Command Bolshoi, and Super Heel Devil Masami.
Easy for you to say, John. You know, listen, over the time that we've been doing this podcast, I feel like you've gotten so much better at this. Just because I know that there's been a lot of repeat names, so I feel like over time you've just gotten better at saying it.
And you just gotta like slow it down a little bit. I can't be like, or else I'm gonna get tongue tied. So now you gotta read them. You gotta read them nice. I'm just glad we don't have a full Fire Pro roster this week.
Oh man, listen. When I saw that it was a Fire Pro game, I was like, oh no, there's gonna be like 75 wrestlers in this game.
Yeah.
Not the case.
Yeah.
Pretty decently side roster though.
There are some tips and tricks here. Now, in the option screen, you set the background music, sound effects, or voice to one of the following numbers. You exit the options menu, start the game, and there are some changes. So it's kind of like an old school way to put in some cheat codes. It'll actually change 5 of your wrestler edit slots to the following: Gold Woman, Bison Kimura; Silver Woman, Lioness Asuka; Lapis Lazuli Woman, who is Yasha Karinai; sure; Emerald Woman, who is Cairo; and Ruby Woman, who is Rina Jabuki. Again, easy
Very
for me
Jabuki-ish.
to say.
Yeah. I love a game. I mean, and this is like very remnant of like the old school like console releases. So like I know that you could do the same kind of thing with the sound effects in the Sonic games, and like that's how you unlock the level select and stuff like that. So like it's cool to see that. I think this may be one of the first games that we've seen. I don't think it's the first, but it's one of the games that we have seen with a menu select that falls under, or like cheats that fall under the sound effects menu, which is cool. It's very old school.
Yeah, kind of got to hide them in there. And I guess if you don't have like a guide back in 95, how do you even know to do this?
I mean, probably just trial and error. Like
that's a pretty specific trial and an error.
Yeah, it happens.
All right, but let's get into this cover that we mentioned earlier in the episode, because you were half right. It is a lot of words, but then you have Asia Kong's face just staring a hole through you. It has 3 women wrestlers on the cover with the Human Entertainment logo, and it's what you expect from a 1995 Fire Pro game. It bothers me that the logo's in front when it should be kind of behind them, and again, graphic designer problems.
The hard edge on that outer glow is killing me. There's like 0 fade to that orange glow in the background. I'm just like a little feathering on there would be so good.
It would be, but it's not there. Listen, overall, it tells you what the game is. Kind of got a little dome in the logo, which, Tokyo Dome might make you gives that like big fight feel there.
Dome is in the title, so
a lot. Oh yeah, it is. A lot of words, but I think you were right where like Wrestling Universe is the main title, and then Fire Pro Joshi, Dome, Choujo Taisen, and then like the two. It didn't need all this, but it's there.
No, it's way too much, but they somehow made it work in a way that is not the entire cover just being words, so I'll take it. They made it work. Now, actually in the game, like when you're in a match, let's talk about how that looks, because gameplay-wise, how the game looks, guess what, guys? It's a Fire Pro game. It looks like a Fire Pro game, feels like a Fire Pro game. Animations are clean and crisp and smooth. If you run and do a drop kick a little too close to the ropes, your ass is going
you're going flying
right out of the ring.
It's got
John and I definitely didn't do that like 100 times.
It's got everything you would expect. The crowd looks like the wrestlers themselves, which George always says if that's the case, it's most likely going to be a good-looking crowd, and it is. You got the same old Fire Pro mats outside of the ring, which are typical in every other game with the Japanese-style turnbuckle pads. I think the characters look pretty good for the time and the era and everything. They look like Fire Pro characters, and that's cool. Also crazy to see how there's just certain, I guess, motions, certain aspects of these Fire Pro games that still are in the game today, and I think that's just awesome. Kind of like how we always point out that when we play World Tour, like, oh, that's still in No Mercy.
There are certain parts of the Fire Pro series that have evolved over time, but there's also those staples, those consistencies that have been there throughout the entire series. Camera angle has changed slightly in terms of like the perspective of the angle of the ring, but it's always kind of been in the same spot. I guess you could even say maybe there's like over time the ring got bigger.
Yeah, for sure.
Or maybe the camera got closer. But it just, there's not a crazy hard learning curve when it comes to a Fire Pro game. Once you kind of figure out, when that grapple animation triggers for you to hit the button. Again, Fire Pro, not known for being a button masher. You have to adapt to that style. But it makes your moves more intentful, and like you have to actually like pick your spots. And it's more like a strategic wrestling game, which I always thought was cool. And I'm glad that over the course of the last 2 years, John's come around to as well.
Yeah, I've come around to it. I've played a lot of Fire Pro this week. But let's talk about this wrestler select screen, because you, again, have the big gold... Did I say big? The big gold women just there, waiting?
Yep. Did you mention the fact that they're big?
They're big. They're big. Everything is big.
And they're gold.
The roster split blue and pink by promotion, so if you want to search by promotion, this is a lot nicer than the Queen Special we played, because it was on like a wheel and you had to scroll and it's text and you don't know who they are. This one has a nice picture, a nice little icon, and then once you pick, you have a matchup screen with the two, like, I guess, PNG images of the wrestlers about to face off, and I think that's pretty cool. Now, one thing we don't know, which was in Queen Special, was there is a little entrance after this, and I could only assume that this game has it as well, but don't quote me on that, where rather than one at a time, you get an entrance from each wrestler. They're both kind of at the same time, but you only see, I guess, kind of like their heads going through the crowd a little bit. It's like a loading screen, but doubles as like their entrances.
Yeah, it was definitely not the normal fanfare that you would expect with a Fire Pro game, but it was effective.
Yeah.
Nice little teaser of what's to come in the match.
Yeah, and then I guess we would have to say, did you know? Did you know Debbie Malenko is the only wrestler from the original Super Famicom game that does not return for this one?
Did you know Super Fire Pro Wrestling Queen Special also comes out in 1995 for the Super Famicom and features the All Japan Women's roster?
Did you know this game is on eBay for around $70 pre-owned?
And John,
No, I didn't buy it. Not only was it $70, there was like $20 shipping from like all around the world, which is crazy.
Oh, but John, collapsible seg this week?
Collapsible seg, no ratings and reviews. I must have clicked on every single website that had to do with this game. I posted in the Fire Pro group on Reddit. I could not get any information on this game, so to say that I found some reviews, I'd be lying, and I didn't. So what do you say we do the most important review right now? Because I think, what is it?
It's time to rate the games.
The game!
All right, George, I'm cutting you off here. I'm going to say it from my last time this episode. Wrestling Universe, Fire Pro Joshi, Dome Choujo Taisen, WOWOW versus JWP. I'm getting a little dry throat there. Will you play it forever?
Woo!
Or future endeavor?
You're fired!
Oh boy. This is tricky because it's a Fire Pro game and I liked it. But is it a Fire Pro game that I think I would play over other ones is really the question, because now there are so many. You can't really just like say that you're going to play them all because it's a Fire Pro game. This one just didn't have like the presentation and the fanfare that like the other ones had. Like I would much rather go and play Fire Pro Wrestling Returns over this, or World over this. So I think for that reason, I am going to have to say that I am going to future endeavor this game.
You're fired!
But you, my faithful and wonderful co-host Johnny Clash, what will you do for Fire Pro Joshi? Will you play it forever or future endeavor?
All right, so Cutie Suzuki's in it. It was a good gameplay. The taunts were fun. The moves were fun. We had a good time. I know we can't judge on if we had a good time. If I was ever able to get my hands on this, I think I would actually sit there and play it. Plus, there's no way of playing it for future endeavored in our future. So I am going to play it forever.
Woo!
Well, shit.
Well, George, in like 80 or so episodes, you're going to have to
I'll figure it out.
You're going to have to figure this one out. But no, in all seriousness, I did actually think it was a good game, which led me to the play it forever. I can't base it off of if I would play it again for future endeavor.
Yeah, all right. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. But listen, I think it's time for us to go and talk about our weekly tournament, Clash at the Feast.
All right, for this week's game where we actually played Queen's Special, head on over to youtube.com/GameMarksPodcast to see who pulls out the win. Last week was episode 100, but it was also the start to the second section of season 3 to see who gets the second tally. George, you pulled off a big tiebreaker for the first 2 months to catch that first tally. You are up 1-0 on the year, on the season. We played WCW versus NWO World Tour. I chose DDP. You chose Wrath, 2 secret wrestlers. You pulled off the win with Wrath. Match number 2. I went back to the well. I went back to Sting. The guy I know his
Tried and
moveset.
true.
And he beat Scott Steiner. So we're 1-1 right now. And then George says, what if we go back and we pick the same guys who we played with 100 episodes ago? I accepted. I was Hollywood Hulk Hogan. George was the Giant. A lot of out of the ring, back and forth, a lot of cat and mouse. I was really playing.
It's a long one.
Yeah, I was really trying to win, but you pulled it off for the first tally of month 2 for your winner, George Feis.
Play my music.
All right. Oh my god, that face. All right. But we are well on our way now, I guess, to year 2. That's our next milestone. What are we going to play for year 2? You will have to find out later. We got the Mark Out Digital Wrestling Card Game episode coming this week. But George, why don't you tell everyone what we are playing on the podcast next week?
All right, I'm excited for next week's game because it's pretty much a one and done for the console. We don't have many of those. Next week, we are playing WWE Aftershock for the Nokia N-Gage. And that is a pick from our very own Soups, Jamie Patterson.
That's right, guys. If you join the Mega Mark tier of our Patreon, you get to pick the games we play, and you get to kind of direct GMP64 a little bit. But he actually said he wanted this N-Gage game to come out this week specifically because it's the week of Nick Gage versus Matt Cardona. And that's
God.
That's our bosski. That's broski. I mean, we got to root for him. I mean, I don't really know much about Nick Gage. I'm not going to get in the middle of them two. I know he hurt my friend Nick Stapp, so I hope he gets a little reboot right to the face. I'm going to say right here. Sorry, Justin Summers.
Is that it, John? Are we finally finished with Wrestling Universe, Pro Joshi Dome, Choujo Taisen, WOWOW versus JWP? Is that it? Are we putting a bow on it?
Yeah, I think we're good here.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us this week on the Game Marks Podcast. Please check out our merchandise at GameMarksPod.com/shop and join us on Patreon at patreon.com/GameMarksPod. It is the best way besides listening to support the podcast, and be sure to follow us on all forms of social media at GameMarksPod. Leave us a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to wherever great podcasts can be found. Thank you for hanging out with us this week. We appreciate the support. Johnny Clash, let's wrap this up. Do that thing that you do.
Game over. Marks. I'm going to go play as Cutie Suzuki.
Game Marks Podcast, put them on the radar. Playing rare games, Sega Saturn, no Game Shark. Johnny and George work hard and they play hard. Future endeavor games and put them in the graveyard. From the deep dive to the clash at the feast. How can I get more? That's question of the week. Follow on Twitch, there's nothing that they won't play. Game Marks Podcast every single Monday.